All right, thank you everyone for joining us for today's installment of Our Security Your Way, our ongoing webinar series around managed security services. For today's installment, Himanshu Verma, our Director of Product Management, will be providing some really great, really helpful information around how to best utilize UTM, Unified Threat Management, in order to provide the managed services that your customers really need. And guys, we also have a special treat for you today. We have a special guest with us, Corey Nachreiner, WatchGuard CTO. Now, before I hand things over to Himanshu and to Corey, I do just have a few really quick housekeeping notes. Now, during the webinar, if you have a question at any point, please don't hesitate to let us know. Just type your question into BrightTalk's question panel, and we will review the question at the end of the presentation. And we also have some great attachments for you today. We have the PowerPoint deck that Himanshu and Corey will be using, as well as a great MSSP booklet for you to check out. So please be sure to look at your attachments tab. And then following the end of the presentation, the webinar will be made available on BrightTalk, on WatchGuard's network security channel on BrightTalk, within about an hour after the completion of the presentation. So feel free to stop by anytime and review the content. And that's all I have on my end. So with that said, I will hand it over to Himanshu.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna, and hello everyone. Thanks for joining today. This is a continuation of our webinar series labeled Our Security Delivered Your Way. As you know, we've been doing this webinar series primarily focused towards partners and managed security service providers who would like to provide added value to their customers. The first two sessions that we already did in the past are now available on demand. So if you didn't have the opportunity to take a look at them, please go ahead and you can look at them online, on demand, either on WatchGuard's partner portal, or it's also available on BrightTalk. Today we are going to focus on intelligent protection. Our core value proposition for our MSSP partners is primarily around three areas: simplified management, intelligent protection, and actionable visibility. So we will be following today on intelligent protection. And before I get started, I wanted to kind of go over some of the market trends that we are seeing and some of the feedback that we receive continuously from our existing partners and customers. What is really impacting businesses today? This is something that we analyze very closely, and WatchGuard's predictions for 2017, as well as our ongoing, internet cyber security reports, also testify to what's happening in the market. Cyber attacks are ongoing. Every day in the news, there is some new hack or new cyber attack that is found. However, small, medium businesses are the ones who are getting the most impacted with these cyber attacks. There was a report by the Ponemon Institute around the state of cybersecurity in small and medium-sized businesses, and if you look at that report, year over year from 2016 to 2017, data breaches as well as cyber attacks are continuing to grow, and in the past 12 months, small, medium businesses continue to be impacted by these cyber attacks. Now, the impact on small, medium businesses is pretty significant, primarily because of the insufficient resources and the lack of cybersecurity skills that these small, medium businesses have. And this is one of the primary reasons why we see this opportunity for our partners and our managed security service providers to be able to help the small, medium businesses. One of the top concerns and one of the top security concerns, which continues to be this year as well, is ransomware. I'm sure that most of you on the line now are aware of this term, ransomware, which is a form of computer malware that basically encrypts and takes control of the data and the information of the customer, and then there's a demand to pay some ransom to regain access. And most likely this ransom demand is in the form of Bitcoins. This was a trend in 2016 where some of the most common ransomwares were getting more prevalent. However, in 2017, this has actually taken a pretty significant toll on businesses. Some of the common ransomwares like Petya, WannaCry, they actually now infiltrate into most of the common verticals in the businesses as well, verticals like healthcare and verticals like logistics. And this has not only caused losses to business, but also service disruption, which has spread across a lot of the business ecosystem. One of the predictions that Corey from the CTO office from WatchGuard had was around ransom worms, which is again what we saw in 2017, where ransomware as a service is also becoming an ongoing trend. Most of these ransomwares are getting spread out in the form of phishing attacks or spams, and some of the reports and stats that we've seen in 2016 again are showing 6,000% increase in ransomware spam. And we are seeing ransomware not only on endpoints but also on mobile devices now. And again, some of the really glaring aspects are that a company is hit with ransomware every 40 seconds. So this is again a pretty significant threat out there. And why this is different is because this now moves into the advanced threat category. This is not one of your common threats which existing security solutions or the traditional security solutions like antivirus, etc., can take care of. Even WatchGuard's respondents, 83% of WatchGuard's survey respondents, they believe that ransomware is the #1 threat for their customers. So before I move forward, we have a quick polling question for our audience. Have you or your customers' business experienced advanced threats such as ransomware in the last 12 months? I think this is something that we would like to get insight on so that we can provide you with relevant information and resources. And just as part of our ongoing trends, we would like to also capture this information.
Himanshu, our audience has 30 more seconds to place their votes.
And if you do get a chance, folks, you can also check out WatchGuard's Internet Security Report. That also includes some statistics from both our products as well as customers. This is something that's developed by our CTO office and our internal threat research team who keeps track of these trends.
All right, Himanshu, the results are in. For the question, have you or your customer's business experienced advanced threats such as ransomware in the last 12 months? 84% responded with yes, 15% no.
Perfect, yeah. So again, pretty large, significant number of respondents here who have experienced or whose customers have experienced these kind of threats. And again, I would now have Corey talk over that, why ransomware and some of these threats are different, and what are the challenges of some of this advanced malwares that we are seeing in the field.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. This is Corey Nachreiner, CTO of WatchGuard. As Himanshu was saying, ransomware has really blown up quite a bit over the past year, largely because it's making the criminals a lot of money. Even if around 30 to 40% of victims pay, that's $1 billion a year for these criminals. But another huge trend that your customers are facing is malware in general, and ransomware definitely is becoming more advanced. It's finding ways to evade legacy security controls. And what I mean by legacy security controls is a lot of early malware detection was pattern-based. Really, the way it worked is you'd have security analysts which would discover a new threat. They would figure out some pattern in that threat, and they would write what's known as a signature to catch that malware. Once you have a signature for that new threat, your security control, your anti-malware, antivirus can catch it. The problem is, again, this advanced malware is getting more evasive, and one of the ways they are evasive is just by creating large volumes of new malware. They use very technical techniques like something called packing encrypting, where they can take the same executable. Even though the underlying executable, when it runs on your computer, it will deliver WannaCry just like the last version of WannaCry. what they've done is they've used this nerdy code technique to repack that executable, so on a binary level it looks different. So that's just one of the many ways that they can get past a signature-based antivirus solution. And it's one of the reasons why the volume of threats are blowing up. You know, antivirus companies see 600,000 plus different variants of malware a day. And it's not because there's tons of hackers out there creating new malware. It's because they're taking their old malware and they're constantly, every new victim gets a slightly new version, which is designed to bypass the more reactive legacy signature-based AV. However, there is new ways to catch this evasive malware. There's new advanced malware detection techniques. You can see a chart here that talks about things like behaviors and deep analysis. Here at WatchGuard, we offer you and your customers something called APT Blocker, which is a behavioral analysis sandbox. We don't need to rely on having a pattern for new ransomware. We have the opportunity that when we see a new threat, it goes up to our cloud sandbox. We can analyze it within minutes. And based on the behaviors that ransomware authors can't change because the ransomware wouldn't work, we can actually tell a brand new zero-day version of some new malware threat. So I really encourage you to get some sort of advanced malware solution for your customers, because we're seeing a huge amount of the malware out there is actually pretty evasive, ransomware especially. As Himanshu mentioned, my team does a security report. The first quarter we did it, 33% of malware was missed by signature-based or legacy AV. The next report, that jumped up to 38%. And the most recent report, that went way up to 47%. Now, I'll tell you, the report we're going to be releasing in a month or so now, it's dropped a little bit, but it's still over 1/3 of the malware out there is this advanced malware. And if you don't have some sort of advanced malware protection, you might miss it. So with that, let me turn it to Himanshu for a moment.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Very helpful information there with regards to advanced malware and the trends that we are seeing. One of the other industry-focused trends is on detection and response. And this is a term that has primarily taken along its way where Gartner actually introduced the adaptive security architecture. This security architecture primarily is based towards a guidance to both vendors as well as partners to focus now away from just the prevention techniques. Again, we will continue to focus in this presentation that especially partners who are offering security services need to now leverage layered technology or layered security approaches. Prevention alone is not just enough. And I think this is where what experts are now recommending is that there needs to be detection techniques involved as well along with prevention. So just diverting attackers or preventing incidents is not just enough alone. You need to now proactively detect incidents and also at the same time have some learning mechanisms where you can confirm and prioritize some of the items and maybe build a risk profile or risk score for these incidents that are occurring either in your IT posture or your network security. And this continuous monitoring and analysis then goes on where it's not only then detecting but also responding to those threats either proactively or reactively. Industry again, they prefer, and the focus here is to actually automate that response where you can then proactively go in and actually have either policies that automatically respond to these threats, or you have reactive actions that can go in either by means of alerting and notification and then making certain changes so that you can remediate any negative activities that are happening. And then eventually this continuous monitoring and analytics then continues on where it builds a predictive or a predictable intelligence solution so that then for the future the system is ready to take care of any ongoing such patterns or behaviors that continue to emerge. And this basically trend is also moving into the managed security businesses where managed detection and response is becoming important as a delivery mechanism from partners to customers. However, one of the important aspects here, which is again very important, is again per Gartner and their research analysts, they recommend that partners should be looking for a single vendor solution that works cohesively and can offer the full detection and response capabilities from that one single platform. And as we move forward, you will see how WatchGuard is actually poised to allow partners to deliver full managed detection and response capabilities to their customers from our Total Security Suite, which I will touch as we move forward. I would like to hand it back to Corey, where he can walk us into how you should be looking at, again, addressing some of the advanced malware out there. And if you've heard the term, the cyber kill chain, this is a very good data point of seeing how a cyber kill chain evolves and what are the various steps and how to address that cyber kill chain with WatchGuard's products for your customers.
Yeah, thanks, Himanshu. And Himanshu said something very important. I mean, the thing you need to provide to your customer, threats are different. They change all the time. And that's why this old adage of layered security or defense in depth has always won. And to me, the cyber kill chain is kind of a more modern and sexy way to talk about defense in depth. And it also talks about that adaptive security model that Himanshu just showed you, where it's not just about prevention, but it's about going into detection and response too. So in case you haven't heard of the cyber kill chain, it's actually a paradigm that was first created by Lockheed Martin. I call this one the cyber kill chain 3.0 because it's 7 steps of a external attack, but I've personally changed and added, I've removed a step and added a step that I actually think is more important in today's modern attacks. But let me really quickly take you over what the kill chain is. Again, it's designed to tell you different stages of a typical external attack, and it will start with reconnaissance. If I'm an external attacker targeting one of your customers, the first thing I want to do is learn about that customer, things that might tell me a weakness that I could then target to compromise their network. So reconnaissance can be anything from passive techniques, where I'm just doing website and internet research to learn about your company, but it can also be technical and active techniques, where I'm learning your DNS information, and more importantly, where I get to a phase where I actually be scanning your IP space to try to figure out what network services and what other things you expose to the internet. And based on that reconnaissance, the goal is to, of course, find some sort of weak point, and that weak point becomes the second phase, my delivery vector. Now, the delivery vector is very, very different in every single attack depending on what weakness someone finds. For instance, if I'm an attacker and I find one of your customers because of their business has to expose a file server, and maybe they don't patches regularly, or maybe they don't buy your service to help them patches regularly, well, maybe that FTP server, so port 21 over the network, becomes my delivery vector. On the flip side, maybe I find you're not exposing much to the internet, but I learn about your user base, and I learn that I might want to spearfish someone in accounting. That becomes my delivery vector. But the reason the delivery vector is important is it's different each time, and depending on what the delivery vector is, will require different defenses for you to offer to your customer. Now, of course, I know the weakness. There still may be something I need to exploit. For instance, my first example, if I find a file server that hasn't been patched, this is where I go through my exploit phase. I actually have to exploit a software security vulnerability in order to take over that file server and gain root access. So that's called the compromise or exploit phase of the attack, and there's specialized security controls specifically to help prevent those compromises, which I'll talk about. Then comes the infection phase. Say I do gain root access to your file transfer server. My goal as an attacker is to silently live on your network for a while. And to do that, I need to establish persistence. And this is typically where I will install what we've been calling malware, some sort of payload that gives me persistence or helps me carry out my attack on your network. So that's the installation phase. And as you can tell here, these 4 phases have to do with prevention, because by the time an attacker's installed something on your customer's system, they've technically breached your network and got malware in your computer or your customer's computer. And typically, this is where people stop, because they assume if your computer's infected, that's the end game. But that's not the case at all. And the more important parts of the kill chain become detection and response. Malware, when it does install, it typically has to call home to give the attacker some way to control it. We call this the command and control phase, or the C2 phase. There are different security controls that might be able to detect and stop this command and control. Then the phase that I added is called lateral movement. Say perhaps there's nothing important on your file server and what I really want is to gain access to one of your internal databases. Well, now that I'm inside your network, even though it's a server I don't care about, I'm in a great position to start internally attacking your network because I'm past some of your external security controls. So now really the whole kill chain starts over from the inside out, where I start doing reconnaissance internally. And this is what we call lateral movement and pivoting. And finally, eventually, if I'm a successful attacker, I will get to wherever I'm trying to go. And that's where I will carry out whatever my malicious objective is, which is often exfiltrating data or charging you for a ransom. So this is the cyber kill chain. Now, why this is important isn't so much because it's interesting to know all the stages of the attack. It's important because as a security provider, you want to provide some sort of security control to help prevent each one of these individual stages in one way or the other. Now, do know you're never going to get 100% protection for every stage, and that's why it's important to cover all the different stages of the cyber kill chain, even down to being able to detect malware within your network. And by the way, you know, Himanshu's talking about how WatchGuard's Unified Threat Management System provides you with all of these defenses, which you can then manage for your customer. So for instance, in the reconnaissance phase, albeit the reconnaissance phase is the one you can't totally block because people are going to be able to do internet searches on your customer's company. From a technical standpoint, when the attacker starts doing things like scanning your network, that's where WatchGuard's firebox protections can kick in. We have, for instance, capabilities to detect port and IP space probes, and when we detect them, we can automatically block that attacker's IP because we know if he's scanning for vulnerabilities, his next step is to use them. So why not just put him in the timeout corner and not let him do anything on your network or find any of the open services? So there's things you can do to help your customers for reconnaissance. Now, delivery, if an attacker does find a vector, and for instance, a network attack vector like your web server or sending phishing emails, that's where all of WatchGuard's total security suite services kick in. You will have to open up some ports on your customer's firewall for them to do business or to browse the web, but if you buy our total security suite or you offer it to your customers, we now have different services that can monitor the traffic you allow for delivery vectors. We can monitor for malicious web traffic. We can monitor for emails with known bad attachments or even unknown attachments. It's where all our total security kicks in to start monitoring the different network-based delivery vectors. For compromise and exploit specifically, let's say a bad guy is leveraging a file transfer, software vulnerability. That's where specifically intrusion prevention takes off quite a bit. Intrusion prevention is designed to catch these exploits and stop them right away, but also our malware prevention can often stop this too. JavaScript is often used as part of the exploit, and our malware detection services will also catch a lot of that evil JavaScript. And let's say there's a zero-day exploit that does work against some of your customers' software. That's where, the bad guy is going to try to install malware, a payload, so that he can stay in your customer's network. Well, again, that's where all our anti-malware services really shine. Gateway Antivirus can use very quick techniques to try to find known malware, but more importantly, for that advanced malware that does get past Gateway Antivirus, Total Security offers APT Blocker, which can find the zero-day ransomware, like WannaCry variants that sometimes get past initial gateway antivirus. And finally, Himanshu mentioned threat detection and response. In the worst case, if malware does somehow run on your computer, threat detection and response is designed to immediately find those malicious processes. And if you have the right policy, or if you are managing a service for your customer, you can have it automatically clean it up for your customer. So lots of preventative security controls. But as I mentioned, if you really want to have a managed detection and response service, which offers great margin and you offer great value to your customer, you're going to want to also have capabilities to find malware that has somehow snuck its way past your defenses. It could just be someone carrying a laptop into your customer's network. So that's where, for instance, when the malware calls home on a command and control channel, we have a number of services that recognize and can detect that command and control callback. WebLocker does it. We have botnet command and control detection, and threat detection response specifically correlates endpoint activity with network activity like command and control callbacks. So using something like threat detection response, we're going to tell you immediately if we suspect one of your customers' machines is infected and give you the capability to clean it up immediately. For lateral movement, and this is kind of my personal thing, I find that a lot of small business networks are flat. And what I mean by that is they have all their computers, whether they're really important sensitive data servers or whether they're just the front desk person's computer that she browses with all day. They have everything on the one same network. I highly recommend if you offer your customer a good security service, you should segment their network. You should separate virtually using our Firebox their more important data servers from their everyday run-of-the-mill employee computers. That way, if malware does infect one of the employees, the bad guy still has to jump through all the security services I've already talked about to get to that important service. So think about segmenting your customer's network because you're going to offer them a much better security capability. And finally, by the way, no defenses will ever be perfect. I don't care what vendor you buy from, and that's why, by the way, we have managed detection and response with threat detection response. But let's say an attacker does actually get to your Active Directory or your database server. At some point, one of the things they might want to do is exfiltrate the data. So it's important to even cover that last phase where things like our data loss prevention capability, which comes with Total Security, can give you one final chance to catch that data and stop it before it leaves your customer network. So again, the point of the kill chain is to consider all the way down to the end, even when malware installs in the computer, make sure you have security controls that you can offer your customer. And there's a lot of service possibilities here. A lot of your customers, they don't have the time, money, or even expertise to be able to monitor a detection and response service to make sure that when it does find something, it's being cleaned up. So besides just installing our products for your customers, you can build services around managing this kill chain and monitoring it 24/7 with NDR. By the way, really quick before I turn it back to Himanshu, to give you kind of an example of how this layered kill chain security works, it's really about having many different defenses that potentially could catch a threat if another defense fails. WannaCry, the huge ransomware that really affected Europe but even cost FedEx $300 million in our neck of the woods, spread explosively. It was a ransom worm, had automated network spreading capabilities. But we actually did very well the day it came out, I believe May 12th. Our IPS, to spread on the network, WannaCry used the NSA leaked vulnerability codenamed External Blue. Our IPS had already had 4 different signatures to catch that network exploit. So if you had someone that brought WannaCry in your network, we could actually catch that exploit if it was if someone was exploiting it through your Firebox. Our gateway antivirus actually did fairly well. Remember, the gateway antivirus, while it uses a number of techniques, including signatures, it's a little more quick and legacy techniques, but we actually had a number of signatures even in our gateway antivirus that blocked WannaCry very early on. But most importantly of all, APT blocker, or advanced malware detection, using the behavioral detection in the cloud. That blocked WannaCry immediately based on its behaviors. Now, the point of this is any one of these 3 defenses could have blocked an aspect of WannaCry, but it's really nice to have all of them, because if there's a new threat that maybe has a new evasive capabilities, one defense type might miss. And that's why it's important to make sure you have those other kill chain defenses to catch some other aspect of the kill chain. So with that, let me hand it back to Himanshu.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. Very comprehensive information there on the cyber kill chain, and obviously an example of how security services can address advanced malware. I think one of the things I again want to highlight here and to summarize especially for partners who are going to be providing services here, is that businesses continue to be vulnerable to exploits of advanced malware. And this is again from the same report from Ponemon Institute, where you can see that again year over year from 2016 to 2017, you notice that customers are reporting back and businesses are reporting back that they are not able to detect and block most of the cyber attacks. And why is that? Is because again, to address these advanced threats, you need to go beyond the standard prevention techniques. And again, examples of that adaptive security model that I just mentioned, there are three main things that partners can do. One is extend the existing network securities that you're leveraging beyond just the network. And I think that's where, what we call endpoint insights, where part of the ecosystem of what these customers are using, their devices and their endpoints, bring some behavioral elements from those endpoints and heuristics from those endpoints into the analysis of what is going on within that environment. And this by no means means that, we are now offering or diverging into an endpoint security solution. However, this means that you're increasing your threat intelligence posture to go beyond just threat indicators, not just from the network, but gathering the threat indicators from the endpoint as well. And then putting that into a service, a threat intelligence service, which can then adaptively adapt itself or change itself to allow you to automate some of the remediation and response capabilities. And I think that is really what comprises of a true managed detection and response capability. In addition to that, advanced threat triaging using cloud sandboxing is a great technique. Again, Corey mentioned APT Blocker, which is again one of our enterprise-grade security solutions that takes any incoming threats or suspicious malware and then detonates it in a cloud sandbox environment and emulates that physical machine behavior or emulates that environment and then reports back whether it's safe or not for the customers. So again, I think these are the services that partners should be focusing on. And threat detection and response, which is included in the total security suite with WatchGuard, is one such service. This not only allows partners to scale this service effectively, as I covered in my simplified management session last time around, but most importantly, this is a combination of multiple security services, primarily ThreatSync, which is a cloud intelligence service, which again gathers threat indicators from our network sensors, which is our Firebox element, and then also from the endpoint where we capture heuristics and behavioral elements on the endpoint. And then the ThreatSync service does the adaptive security risk scoring for our partners, where they can then have policies and configurations which can either automatically remediate and remove any such ransomware or malware elements or advanced threats, or it alerts and notifies them so that they can then quickly go in and take reactive measures in their customer's environment. So again, a great service to evade any advanced threats or protect against threats that traditionally would evade your existing security services. To highlight, this is what we really call our security, and our security includes a set of security services. One of the most important things for, again, managed security service providers and partners who are providing managed security services is how they can leverage these services and how easy it is for them to leverage these services from vendors like WatchGuard. And I think this is where we package these services in two easy segments for our partners. Either you are providing basic security to your customers, and customers who are, whose environments are only being exposed to, standard threats or basic threats, and the needs in those environments are limited to those threats. However, what we are seeing, and as I've highlighted, is that as advanced threats continue to grow, and since these threats don't discriminate, they're going after every single vertical and industry. And that's where simplifying the packaging of a total security suite that includes the combination of some of the basic security services as well as the advanced security services such as APT Blocker, data loss prevention, threat detection and response, and network discovery that allows partners to effectively break the kill chain is what we look forward to our partners and enable them so that they can not only provide effective managed security services, but also be prepared to provide managed detection and response services to their customers. And then you can take our security and deliver it in your way. And this is where the intelligent protection element comes in, where you can not only provide preventative services that prevent threats from coming into customers' environments, simple services like gateway antivirus, our packet filtering and IPS services, or our spam blocker and application control or URL web filtering. Primary use cases of these services are in the education department or in the retail department, where all the customers' needs or your clients' needs are to prevent threats from coming in or from users to getting access to those threats. And then in advanced customers' environments where the data is very important and critical, primarily around point of sale, hospitality, I think that is, and financial services, that is where you need to start leveraging detection and response capabilities. And when it comes to detection, you have security services, again, packaged as part of total security, such as APT blocker, threat detection and response, our reputation-enabled defense, which combine the threat intelligence that you need, and then also data loss prevention, which ensure that even if somebody does get into the customer's environment, you can then detect, what data is moving from where. And then finally, the response capabilities. This is, again, very critical and important in a managed security services environment because it prepares our partners to be able to automate and respond to some of the threats and incidents without having any disruption in the customer's environment. And hence, automation is the key there. So again, prevention, detection, and response use cases all satisfied as part of this intelligent protection, which you can then deliver your way to your customers. Corey, what do you think about Wi-Fi and wireless networks, and would you want to highlight our partner community and our and managed security service providers around Wi-Fi environments?
Sure. So Wi-Fi is just as important as all the other parts of your network. We've talked a lot about kind of organizational network security, taking what's happening on your network and at an endpoint level. And UTM covers network very, very well, has all those security services that block any sort of layer 4 to layer 7 type of attack. And if, by the way, if you plug any wireless access point into our UTM, you do get that layer 4 through layer 7 protection. But the one thing a lot of customers and maybe some partners forget about wireless is Wi-Fi has very specific layer 2 attacks. There's attacks that happen at that wireless layer before it even is doing anything really at the UTM network, host-to-host level. And that's where you really need to focus your wireless security efforts. Now, I won't cover all of the threats on this particular slide for time's sake, but I do want to talk about a few of the things like Wi-Fi password cracking. You might remember a long time ago where WEP security had a vulnerability, so WEP Wi-Fi security is no longer good. And now we're using something called WPA, which is more secure, but bad guys still will DOS WPA access points and try to crack those passwords. If you use a short enough WPA password, a pre-shared key, there's a possibility that bad guys can crack it. And those attacks, when they're DOSing your users, that happens on the layer 2 level. So do you have security controls to monitor for that? By the way, more recently, there is even something called the crack starting with the K, WPA2 vulnerability. It doesn't actually allow users to get your WPA2 password, but it gives them the potential to man in the middle some of your clients, despite the fact that WPA2 should be offering that client encryption and security. So again, crack, another example of a layer 2 attack that UTM is not going to find that, but you need a specific Wi-Fi security control to look for those type of attacks. Another common examples of layer 2 attacks are things called, for instance, evil twins or rogue access points. A rogue access point is an access point that someone's plugged into your internal network but is not corporate sanctioned. And when that's plugged in, how do you find it? How do you know? It's obviously broadcasting a SSID or a wireless network in your airspace and it's plugged into your network, but you need the capability to wirelessly scan your network to find those rogue access points. On top of that, an evil twin is another type of attack that leads to a man in the middle. That's where, for instance, if an attacker sees that WatchGuard has a SSID for a guest network, they might put up an access point somewhere else, not really on our network, but in our proximity that says it's WatchGuard guest. And they're trying to get your clients to automatically connect to the fake version of your network. And then once they are man in the middle, they can start doing all kinds of bad things that you see here, eavesdropping, planting malware, stealing your data, and so forth. The point is, a lot of those layer 2 wireless attacks happen before there's even any traffic sent over the network, the physical network. So beyond the UTM, you need something to protect your access points for sure. And that's where WatchGuard has our cloud Wi-Fi access points, where you can offer your customers secure Wi-Fi. Among the many things our cloud access points do, one of the things we're known for is wireless intrusion prevention, or WIPS, which is basically the capability to specifically find and block these wireless layer 2 attacks, like the rogue access points or the evil twin attacks or even DDoS attacks when people are cracking your passwords. Now, the way WIPS works for us is patented. We use something called marker packets. The problem with WIPS is to detect something like a rogue access point, a lot of competing solutions have to not only scan wireless airspace, but they have to cooperate with switches to try to find out where the access point is on your local network. Often when they're scanning wireless airspace, they can find an access point they can't recognize, so they might think it's bad, but they don't know if that access point is the Starbucks guest network next door or if it's really an evil attacker trying to attack you. So even though competing solutions might say they have prevention, they might say they can turn on something to protect your clients from joining a potential evil twin, all their manuals actually recommend you against turning it on, because if you do accidentally knock down Starbucks, you prevent people from joining their network, the FCC is going to fine you for a lot of money. So the reason we love our WIPS and we patented it is we don't have false positives. The way we do it essentially is by broadcasting all our wireless packets and also broadcasting packets on the wired network that the access point is connected to with some little signature, a digital pattern in that packet. And when we get return packets from the air or from the wire from our own known clients, we either see that signature or don't see it. And when we don't see it, we know for sure it's not our access point or it's not our client. And what that means to you is when we do detect rogue access points, we can actually very proactively block your clients from going there without fearing knocking down Starbucks' network. So if you also have, as I'm sure you do, customers with wireless networks, consider them getting a WIPS solution like our solution. By the way, our access points can manage their entire wireless network. But even if you have customers that already have access points, the way our WIPS works is you can just get a few of our access points. You can use your current wireless network infrastructure, but use our access points to scan it with this wireless intrusion prevention. So with that, let me hand it back to Himanshu really quick to talk about protection from the cloud to premise.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. And I'll go through some of these slides quickly for purposes of time here. Again, if you're a partner and you're looking to provide managed security services, it's very important to you to scale the breadth of the solution, not just horizontally as well as vertically. And I think that's why most of the partners who are already providing infrastructure as a service or a platform as a service solutions also look forward to providing security services beyond just the physical premises. So our security solutions are not only available in physical appliances, but they're also available in private cloud as well as public cloud editions. These, again, include the same set of security services and support the same set of security services that we've been sharing with you guys when it comes to packaging our security solutions in basic security as well as total security, and then enable you to provide the same set of managed security services to your customers. So again, Firebox V, which is our private cloud edition, and Firebox Cloud, which is our public cloud editions, are also available on the supported platforms for our partners to leverage. Now, beyond talking about security elements, one of the important parts of delivering intelligent protection is to have industry-proven protection. Again, WatchGuard's known for packaging enterprise-grade security for its partners to provide it in an easy and simple fashion to customers. But when you are providing the security services, your reputation and your SLAs are on the line. And I think this is where we make sure that our products go through the rigorous measures of being, industry leadership when it comes to not only performing under the preventative services, but performing under the full set of unified threat management services. You can see some of the measures here. This is a snapshot of Myracom report for our new, M-Series refresh, WatchGuard's Firebox M370, which performed very well even when all the security services were turned on that device. And then in addition to that, we do have NSS Labs recommended rating for our security services, and then other vendor and analyst recognitions in the industry. And what this really means is for you to be able to trust that the products and the services that you are providing to your customers will perform under the set of requirements and measures that you want to provide as a service to your customers. Another topic that I quickly want to highlight here is around our Internet Security Report. Most managed security providers want to continue to remain in the know of what is going on in the threat industry, and that is where Corey and his team and our CTO office does a great job of not only analyzing and gathering some of these trends, but also making sure that our partner community as well as the customer community are well acknowledged and they know about all these ongoing trends. So please continue to take a look at our Internet Security Reports, which are available at WatchGuard. I'm going to skip the polling question in essence of time here and move forward to my last section of the slides, which is around the flexibility to predict the security services that you're delivering and how to measure success as well. One of the important aspects for MSSPs and partners who are delivering these security services is price versus performance, as well as how to measure procurement versus expenses. And this is where the total cost of ownership becomes very important. And WatchGuard's MSSP program provides you that flexibility where you can come in and enable and disable these security services for your customers on an on-demand basis. Whether you're providing these securities on a fixed term or you're providing these security services on a flexible monthly term, we can support either one of those models for your customers. Additionally, WatchGuard provides some added value as part of its MSSP program, where it allows you to actually transact with WatchGuard on a monthly basis, and then also gives you the flexibility to pause and play some of these security services on these appliances. So for example, if your customers want to move away or they want to stop using security services, you have the flexibility to pause and play those security services once you've found a new home for those security appliances. And again,
I'm so sorry to interrupt. Our broadcast will have to end in about 10 seconds. So our attendees should absolutely be sure to check out the recording as well as the attachments tab and join us for